All right, welcome back, everyone. We're excited for this one. Shannon, you suggested it, and John, I know you want to talk about this a lot as well. And on our Costas episode, I butchered the wording on there, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce this one. You guys have to explain how to pronounce this bird.
So the common name of it is Rwenzori Turaco. And
Cool.
the Rwenzoris are the often called the mountains of the moon, which are this set of mountains on the border with Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And Rwenzori Turaco, we can get into the Musophaga here in a second and to talk a little bit about that. But it's this how would I describe it? As it's the order is not closely related to a lot of things. It's kind of on its own. They're frugivorous. They're all found in Africa. And Rwenzori Turaco is its entire distribution is what's called the Albertine Rift, which is a set of mountains to the west of the Great Lakes that runs down into Rwanda and Burundi. And the bird is only found in the high mountains of that part of the world in montane forest. And it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool looking bird. So is there overlap to where the Willard Sooty Boo Boo is then?
Absolutely.
Albertine
it's very
Rift?
similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Well, it's a beautiful bird. When you suggested it, Shannon, like I looked it up right away, and I'm blown away at the color in this, and it's just such a cool looking bird.
I picked it because I like to go places with this podcast. Like to, it's good we talk about birds that people know about, like a black and white warbler, but it's also good to talk about things that people just haven't heard of. And and this bird is. This whole group of birds is cool in so many ways, not just by how they look, because they're just spectacularly colorful and beautiful in really different ways. So they make colors differently than other birds. So that green you see on it is from a pigment. It's one of the only green pigmented things. It's a copper-based pigment called Terracoveridin. And then the red that you see on the wings of it is made by a different pigment. And you add tyrosine to it and you get that red. So you have carotenoids and tyrosine, you get the red that's on the wings. And the really cool thing about that is that it's water soluble. And if you put the wings in water, you'll leach the red out.
Oh, wow.
What? And that's not true of carotenoids, right? Because the carotenoids are put in the feather like that, and they work differently. But yeah, you can leach the color out if you put these birds. So what happens to this bird in the rain? I mean, you think you wouldn't like the rain very much if you were that bird, because you're gonna get the heck out of a rainy environment. But it rains all the time where they are.
Yeah, and they don't have any trouble with it. So I've always been fascinated by that. Again, they're put in their own order now. That's gone back and forth as to whether they would just be a family or an order. And they're just, the genomic work, like stuff that Shannon's done, has shown that they're off kind of by themselves and sister to sometimes waterbird clades. And
but we didn't, when we published that paper, we didn't have much certainty of Turacos. So they're kind of, people have never really known what to do with them. They've been with cuckoos because there are some characteristics with cuckoos. Mostly they're kind of on their own, but the most recent genomic studies, the ones with a lot of species, show that they might be with bustards. And then with cuckoos right outside of that, they're really evolutionarily incredibly distinct and old.
So I think people know what cuckoos generally look like, in the sense that they have kind of long tails and kind of a long body. And the turacos are bigger than cuckoos and have a long tail, and then they often have these crests, a number of them. And again, Rwenzori Turaco is a bird of these high forests. They can go around in pairs or family groups. The other members of the Turacos, and I'm fascinated. This is one of those names where the common name Turaco I don't think anybody really has a good idea
No,
where
they
it came
do.
from.
D-
You
They
think so?
do.
I don't believe
They
it.
do. So it's from a West African. Okay, John. Did you do any research on it, or are you just saying that?
I looked at what Google Chat said.
So I mean, they say it's a West African indigenous term that mimics the bird calls, and that it was adapted into
cool.
French, to Dutch, and then into English, which kind of reflects the colonization patterns of some parts of that part of the world. So that's where they
RJ,
think the
did
Turaco comes from.
you look up the vocalization at all?
Oh no, I need to pull that up.
Let
Yeah.
me see if I can pull it up real fast because
Okay.
I don't hear Turaco. Just saying.
Really? Like it's too high?
No, it's just. I mean.
Oh, you're saying you don't hear the term Turaco?
Yeah, I think some
Okay.
members. So the interesting thing is there's a lot of variation across the order with respect to. There's this whole group that's kind of green. Then there's a single species, which is an incredible bird called great blue Turaco, which is blue, and a Ross's Turaco, which is violet. But then there are these birds of open country that are kind of gray and even brown. So let's see. You got it?
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Look at the U.
I hear
It
Turaco.
carries. It carries really far. Good point. I take it back. I mean, the one thing to be clear about is the local distribution of this bird is probably not related to the West African derivation of it, and so but
Is that
it's
the-
stuck. It's a great
cool.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I think when I was reading, I've read that, is that the laser call? Like
I saw that too. Somebody said it sounded like a 3-part laser gun. Was one of the
Yes.
descriptions.
Something
Yeah, I
out of
think it
Star
is.
Wars. Okay.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one thing. It carries really well, and so when you're in the mountains in the Albertine Rift, and you can hear them much sooner than you see them a lot of times.
That's cool. I wanted to ask about what you guys were saying about the red feathers. Are the red feathers, like I can see on the back of the neck, there's a little bit of red, but the red feathers you're talking about, are they only exposed during flying?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're
So are they
primaries.
protected from the rain because they're tucked in or whatever?
Could be.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, and one thing I thought was interesting is there seemed to be some hedging as to whether or not they were unique to Turacos, and as far as I know, they still are. But I guess maybe people are thinking there's some. I mean, I don't know. There's nothing. So coming back to the potential relatives, I mean, Shannon mentioned bustards. There's nothing colorful about bustards.
Those are not groups of birds you would ever, based on any sense, put together. Like, no way. You would look at them and say, how on earth is anybody thinking these groups are closely related? And the reality is they may be each other's closest relatives, but they're not closely related. It's a very old split. So anyways, it is bizarre. So they are bizarre. That little crest comes because their head feathers don't have barbules on them. So it looks like a mohawk, kind of like a real hair mohawk, which is pretty cool. So if you don't have, feathers have a central rachis, they have barbules, and then hooklets, and that all of those things combine to kind of make the feather a structure that you recognize as a feather, like a flight feather, for example. But these ones, they've lost that, so they've lost some of the stickiness of the barbs, so they don't stick together the way. So obviously those things they're not promoting flight. Like, you don't need a nice airfoil. So you need that for decoration. That's all it is. It's decoration. And so that's why these birds look the way they do, and they look super cool.
So did they not fly very much?
They're awful flyers.
Okay. See, I would say, I mean, they are not. They don't look very graceful when they fly, and yet at the same time, they can move around a little bit. One thing they do really well is they run up and down trees, and their feet are kind of designed to help with that, in the sense that they're what's the term is, they're partially zygodactyl. In other words, one of their
semi-zygodactylous.
Yeah.
Wait, what does that mean?
You know, the way we talked about woodpeckers that are zygodactylous, 2 toes facing forward, 2 toes facing backwards. Most birds have 1 toe facing back and 3 forward. But this bird is semi-zygodactylous, which means it can rotate depending on the situation.
Wow.
It can rotate into being 2 front, 2 back, or 1 and 3.
Okay,
Oh, that's cool.
Like, can't osprey do that as well? I think.
Are they semi-zygodactylous too?
I feel like we had talked about that. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know. Don't quote me.
Well, I think with the Turacos, I think the one of the advantages is if you are, it may allow you to run along branches, and they definitely do a lot of that. And it's a
just
it's a
think
noticeably
about that
different
bird
thing.
a bird that looks like that running along a branch. I mean,
I know.
Gracious. It's like
That's crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that bird is just incredible.
Yeah.
They're frugivores, so the primary aspect of their diet is fruit. One of the things
But
I think is go ahead.
They're polite frugivores, though. They do not swallow their food whole. Apparently, they have adaptations in their bones that are in their beak to keep. So they kind of cut and then swallow the fruit. So they're not like swallowing it whole, and they need to keep their jaws aligned. And so the bones in their upper jaw kind of come over the bones in their lower jaw to keep them kind of stable, so they can cut their food. So
cool.
Yeah, all of these really weird adaptations that you learn when you start looking at these birds. Cool. And they are in zoos, so you can see a Turaco in some of the zoos, at least in the U.S. I imagine in Europe too.
Are all Turacos as like colorful as this one?
Yeah,
no.
And they have some great names. So I remember as a kid, our family did a trip to Africa, and we went to Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, and we were in Uganda, and I was just blown away because in Kampala, Uganda, which is the capital, there's still trees. They haven't completely deforested the whole area around that. And one of the birds that's adapted is this funky gray and white bird called Eastern Gray Plantain Eater. And and I don't think they really eat plantains. I mean, as a matter of fact, the Shannon's probably got this, but the name Musiphagiformes is musifag implies banana eating.
Yeah,
hilarious.
Or plantain eating. Yeah, so that
or plantain eating.
That's a great word, Musiphagiformes. So it is pretty cool.
It's like supercalifragilistic.
Yeah.
So John, we only have four of these birds in our collection.
Oh wow!
Well, so this part of the world is literally the Albertine Rift, where Rwenzori Turaco occurs, straddles borders in ways that, from a colonial perspective, on the eastern side were largely French speaking, and on the other side were English speaking, but they were really hard to get to. And so it's only been in the last 50 years or so that there's been more work done in some of these areas, and
then the political strife has led to so many rebel groups in that part of the world that, I mean, John knows what that's like, because he left a place he was at because of the potential for rebel invasion into the camp that they had created. So yeah, so this bird is Galarex johnstoni. Galley is for cock or rooster, and Rex means king. So king of the cocks, king rooster. Is in reference to the kind of the plumage that it has, kind of crowing itself around like a chicken does.
But that's what it is now, and there's been genetic work to look at the phylogeny. So historically, that would have been lumped in with all the green ones in the genus Musophaga.
But now it's separated out. So there's only 2 species in the Galarex now. And the Johnston eye, I had to look this up too, was from Sir Harry Johnston, who was a British explorer who served as a special commissioner for the Uganda Protectorate. And he collected the type specimen in the early 1900s during one of the first real scientific kind of explorations of the Rwenzori Mountains.
Very cool.
Cool.
Do the females look similar to the males, or is it just
They
the
do.
male that looks very cool? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's true across the family. Is the males and females are very similar.
Very cool.
So I'm ignorant about a lot of geography, which is one of the reasons why it's fun to do things for this podcast, because it makes me look things up. That the Rwenzori Mountains are the highest non-volcanic mountains in the world, which I also found really interesting. And their uplift is what created the Great Lakes, African Great Lakes, Albert, Edward, and George, i.e. king, named after kings, British kings. And it's really small, 120 kilometers long and 65 kilometers wide. That is small.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
To
Wait,
have
that's
such
their range?
Yeah, that's their size.
Oh, wow.
Think about all the birds that are distinctive for there, and that's as long as the Rwenzori Mountains are, 75 miles and 40 miles.
So they get out of the Rwenzori Mountains to the south. So that's the northern limit of their distribution. And
but I think the mountain itself being that small is what I was.
Well, I got you. I was confused. I thought we were talking about the range. You're talking about the size
I'm
of
talking about
the
the
mountain range. Mountain range, not the bird's range.
This area has one of the most complex geologies of any place I've ever worked. So I've actually never been in the Rwenzoris. Field Museum did some modern expeditions there right as Shannon and I got to Chicago, and it's an incredible place, and I'd love to see that part of the world. But we've worked south of there, and as you go south, and I was pointing out that the Rwenzoris are non-volcanic. Right south of there is some areas with very active volcanoes in the Virunga Mountains, and so it's amazing how varied that landscape is. And that's one of the questions about the birds that are there. So Ben Marks and Dave Willard and Tom Noske, and I mean the Willard City Boo Boo example, people have begun to look at the population biology of genetic structure across those regions. So one of our former students, Jacob Cooper, has a undergrad student, Peggy Huss, who's working with him to look at population structure and some of the birds that are across these landscapes, going from the Rwenzoris down into Rwanda and Burundi. But it's a really interesting region, because not only do you have the north-south situation, but then you've also got the lakes in between mountain ranges on the east and west sides of them too, which are interesting. And so Rwenzori Turaco straddles some of that, I think.
So that's got to be, aside from all the rebel groups that I know you've had to deal with, John, like just the geography of that has got to be really tough to navigate to even get in there and study, right?
Which is why people hadn't gotten in there to get to some of those areas, because it's definitely not easy to do. The Rwenzoris are a national park, which is great.
Oh,
cool.
And a lot of the people that have gone there have been actually mountaineers, because it's the highest peak in Africa.
Oh, wow. So what elevation is it? Do we know?
So the elevation is about, I always have trouble going back and forth between meters, but it's about, I want to say it's about 9,000 feet or so.
The highest peak is apparently at 16,000 feet and 5,100 5,100 meters. And they're glaciers. There are glaciers there. There used to be, at least.
They're disappearing fast. Some of the photos of what's happened in the last 100 years is stunning for those mountains.
And if you read about the exploration of it even a little bit, you think, okay, well, this is probably from the 1850s or 1830s, when so many of these accounts of people going these places. But no, we're talking about like 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s,
Okay.
before this place was really explored on foot like that,
Wow.
which is really late. I guess a testament to how isolated and how complex it is to both get there and be there.
Yeah, there are
Really,
no roads. You know,
Oh,
in
wow.
the Rwenzoris, it's all trails.
Mm.
We had really hoped to work on the so again it straddles the border, and because we collaborated with folks in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, starting 20 years ago now, we'd always hoped that we could access the Rwenzoris potentially from the western side, from the Congolese side. Um,
Mm.
but it's never been safe enough to actually do it
Because of the militia
because
groups
of the rebel
or
groups.
the rebel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Gosh.
that's on occasion. Again, the Ugandan side is much more accessible, but it's still been a difficult place to work for the last 20 years.
Wow.
so this is my fun, weird factoid. If you go and look at the Birds of the World website and you look at the vocalizations, guess who made that vocalization? That's the first vocalist. Who
Who
did it?
recorded it?
Do you know? Yeah, can you guess?
Dave Willard.
No, Peter Kastner.
Oh,
Oh, how cool.
Really?
Yeah,
excellent.
it says 1971, so he did that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Cool.
wonder
So
if
when
he
I
was
saw
on
that,
a
I'm like, oh, how
diplomatic
cool.
assignment.
Yeah, I'm sure he was
Cool.
at that point, right? 'Cause
That's
how.
awesome.
Anyways, we
Yeah.
talked to Peter in one of what I don't can remember what episode it was in, but we can look that up. But and
So-
listening to his story about traveling the world and his interest in birds is really pretty fascinating.
You know, and
So
he was
cool.
with the State Department, so that's how he would get to
Right.
a lot of. Remember what he was talking about that.
Yeah.
What that reminds me of is when we started working in the Eastern DRC, across from Rwanda, and in places like Bukavu and Uvira. I can't remember how. I think I stumbled on it, and there was this incredible list with a bunch of detailed information about all the species across the region, and it was put together by a Dutch guy named Tommy Peterson. And I was like, who is this guy? Because and basically what he was a very hardcore birder, like Peter, who happened to work for Flying Tigers, the transport company, the global transport company. And so he would go to these places that nobody else wanted to go to, I think, to transport stuff, and then would get time off, and had spent a lot of time in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, and really amazingly seen a lot of birds that very, very, very few people had seen.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
That's amazing. I remember Peter saying that he would take like assignments to go just based on
Mhm.
birding only. So he would be up for like a position and would pick the one, and it would be like in a really dangerous place,
Yes.
and no one else would want to go there, but he knew that there were birds that he wanted to see there, so would
Yep.
go take it there. I mean, that's
so crazy.
just-
Yeah.
wild that you have that opportunity and can take
I
it.
know.
Like, I mean, that's really, really cool.
Really cool. Yeah.
So John, when you've been in that area, I mean, were you going specifically to see these birds at all? Or, I mean, was it on your list to see?
We were going to do survey work in the southern part of the Albertine Rift, and the focus was on getting samples of montane bird species that are endemic to the region across different sites. Yeah, no, it's a really interesting part of the world, and has a lot of endemism. You know, a lot of the birds that are up in those mountains are not found anywhere else, and sometimes it's continuous populations, but there are things like there are these two Passeriform genera. I'm thinking of there's a bird called Grauer's warbler, which is a monotypic genus that's only found in the Albertine Rift, and it's this little barred understory bird. And so there's just some really neat birds up in that part of the world that people still don't know very much about.
And so were you in areas where like you could only get to on foot, where there weren't roads? And I mean, when you were doing research and
I keep meaning to say that to write something up about sort of going to the end of the road. So in the Itombwe Mountains, which is this giant plateau at the southern part and the southern end, it's one of the most unique areas in all of Africa, and yet it's almost impossible to get to. It's a mosaic, but there are no roads. And I remember we got up into the slopes on the foothills of the Itombwe, and were able to do some work before, as Shannon was describing. We got concerned about safety, which was, as I always say, the way we've always done things there is I absolutely trust the people we work with. And if the people we work with say, we probably should leave, we're going to leave.
Yeah.
But in that part of the world, we basically drove into this tiny little town, and there are churches and things. And so there is an aspect of colonialism, but basically from those towns, you get on trails that go up into the mountains. And it's not that there aren't people up there, because there are. There are entire communities across the Itombwe Plateau that have been there for hundreds of years, but there's absolutely no roads. And the other side is the Congo Basin. And there are some roads, but when they say some roads, you could be dealing with 3 feet of mud in that road, and depending on what's going on at a given time. Here's a fun factoid actually about that region. So the west side of the Albertine Rift is the area with the most lightning strikes in the world.
Oh, wow.
Oh, jeez.
There's one other place, Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela, which rivals it. But like these two little places where, for whatever reason, the electrical output from storms is just incredible.
You have an image of that, right?
Wow.
There's a map with that on it. It's
There
so
is.
dramatic to look and see, like the brightly lit up spots of those strikes.
We can share that and put that up on the website, because it's
Cool.
It's crazy. And I remember standing on the east side, and what was going on. We were there in the dry season, and so it wasn't raining, but every single night you could look over the mountains to the west, and you would just see constant lightning on the western side. Just crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Are wildfires a problem, or because of the lightning, or?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I would have said no because of the rain, but there are areas in Rwanda where fires have actually burned the eastern side of Nyungwe National Park, and those are really disconcerting, because one of the things that it suggests with climate change is that could happen. And the other thing is, those areas are absolutely noticeable. There's a road through Nyungwe National Park that goes from across the western or the eastern side of the rift down to the southern end of Lake Kivu, which is only 15,000 years old. So we were talking about lakes, and Lake Kivu literally formed 15,000 years ago because of volcanic activity that cut off its flow northward, to the point that water then eventually broke through to the south, and now there's a connection called the Ruzizi River that goes down into Lake Tanganyika. But it just shows you how complex this is. But yeah, no, it's really disconcerting what's going to happen with respect to climate change in some of these regions, and if there are more fires, what's going to happen to the landscapes?
I mean, John, listening to you, just think about the life you've gotten to lead because of the career that you have, the places you've been, the things you've gotten to do. I mean, it's really, I love listening to these stories. I love listening to you talk about what you've done and where you've gone, because you have a really good memory for these things. I mean, you can't find your phone. You lose a pen every 5 seconds, but
I have to clean up after myself.
Yeah, you can't. Go in the kitchen and you can't tell that there's still dirty things there, even though you said you've cleaned the kitchen. But you can remember with such vivid detail.
No, and
places
coming
you've
back
gone
to
and the stories.
For sure, and coming back to Amanda's original question about the end of the road, to me is something that is one of the best aspects of the things I've gotten to do in the course of my career. Is once you start going up where there's no vehicles, one, you got to depend on relationships with local folks, and because they're the people that know what they're doing and how to get to these places. And then there's some of the most interesting places I've ever been. Yeah.
Is there any like wildlife that is dangerous out there that you have to have had run-ins with or have to be aware of?
So that's an interesting question too. So historically, there were elephants up in places like Kahuzi-Biega National Park, which is right above Bukavu on the eastern side of the rift. There are gorillas. I've seen gorillas multiple times in these areas, and gorillas aren't dangerous, but they're incredible. And
Wow.
one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do is go see some of the gorilla groups that are on the places like Kahuzi-Biega National Park. They're chimpanzees, which and those can be pretty scary, but that's one where I've never actually seen chimpanzees in the wild.
Oh, wow.
And they're more dangerous than they can be pretty dangerous, right? If you ran into
they're definitely scary. I mean, what I would say about gorillas is the first time I went to go see them, the folks that guide and monitor access to the habituated troops will tell you, if that the silverback male may charge, and if he does charge, it's going to be a faint charge, and you shouldn't move. And sure enough, we were yeah, and the gorilla, the silverback, did a faint charge, and even the guides moved. I mean, there's no way you're not gonna like
seriously.
but it was absolutely like he just did it, then he stopped, and then he went back to eating leaves and things, and so
oh my gosh,
again,
John called home that day. Do you know what my day that day was like? He called on a satellite phone, which he did extraordinarily rarely because that's not what we had the satellite phone.
Well, it didn't work very well either.
Yeah, well, it worked well enough for me to hear about that. Well, I had to put one of our cats to sleep because she got sick. And the same day, Pete, who was 2, locked himself in the half bath on the first floor of the townhouse we lived in, and I couldn't get him out. The door wasn't square, so you're supposed to be able to stick a stick in and trigger the door. Well, it didn't work, and I couldn't get him out, and he was too young for me to tell him how to turn the door handle to get himself out. So I called my dad it was before my dad died, in a complete and utter panic because what am I going to do? And he told me to calm down, as he did many times in my life. And so I had to take the door off its hinges. So I am, one of the cats dead, the 2-year-old stuck in the bathroom for like couple hours while it took me to pry the door off of its hinges to get him out. And, and John's all happy. And I'm like, why did you leave me here alone? What the heck? This is just so unfair.
Yeah. You were like, I'll take a gorilla. I'll trade you places.
Yeah. Take the gorilla faint. You come and figure out how you get your kid, your genetic fitness out of the bathroom. Such a bizarre, awesome. We've had such bizarre kind of interweavings of a personal and professional life that it's kind of, I think it's probably our trademark. And if anybody comes to stay with us, they realize pretty quickly, once they've been in our house for more than a few minutes, that we don't lead normal lives. There's like not very much division between work and the rest of our lives. And then you add hockey and our kid on top of that. And we have like a very mosaically weird life that's like nobody else's, and it can freak people out who come to visit us. So like, you're going to do what? I'm like, yeah, you can go along with the flow, or you can go stay somewhere else, because you're not going to convince us to do anything differently. It's just, we are this way. It is this way. And, why don't you come along and have a good time? Otherwise don't stay. You can judge all you want when you're outside of the house, but this is what it's like. This is what it's going to be like. Luckily, both of our parent groups knew that, so my mom went all over the place with us and, to spend time with her grandson, no matter where. So she got to go all over the place. And John's mom has already gone all over the place.
Well, I was actually thinking when you mentioned Peter Kessner, my dad went on a bird tour. Let's see, probably would have been after 1970, but went on a bird tour in Kahuzi-Biega National Park, which basically people haven't gone there for 25 years. So he was he had to have been one of the last tour groups to go through, to cross the border back then. And this is all before the Rwandan genocide. Anyways, it's an incredible part of the world, and Rwenzori Turacos are amazing, and we've got a lot of good friends and colleagues in these areas. And
well, we love hearing stories about this, so I'm so happy you guys wanted to do an episode on this bird, and then we get to talk about it more, because this is a lot of fun for us. So
we love to hear those adventure stories, especially that, Shannon. That was hilarious. That was so funny.
There's always this give and take of things, isn't there?
Yeah. Believe it. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else on the Rwenzori Turaco? Did I say it right?
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice job, RJ.
Well done.
I would tell people to put their travel hats on, whether that's in person for real, or just go look at picture books, or get on the web and just go somewhere else. That's what picture books did for me as a kid. We couldn't go anywhere. I didn't go anywhere as a kid. But I went places in books, and I went places in looking at picture books of birds and other wildlife. So you don't have to actually travel all over the place to go places. You can come to the Field Museum, and you can travel the world through the museum exhibitions. You can travel the world of birds through the bird hall there. So don't limit yourself to what's just around you.
Well, you can also see so much on websites now. So, the Birds of the World website that Cornell maintains and is developing and continuing to improve is just an unbelievable place to learn about birds across the world.